Everyone was waiting to see if the herbal remedy Kevin had made from the plants that he'd spotted down by the river would help to save Miranda's life. Officer Emmett pulled Kevin aside and asked him, "Did you make that herbal pill you gave me yourself? And also the one you gave to my fiancé?" "Well, you never asked," Kevin replied as he shrugged his shoulders. Officer Emmett didn't know what to say when she heard his answer. Time passed by slowly as they all waited to see if Miranda would show any improvement. About a half an hour later, she started to look a little more normal, but she still hadn't opened her eyes. "Kevin, what's going on?" Dalton asked anxiously. "Don't worry. She's doing fine. I think she'll pull out of this in about 10 minutes, Kevin said confidently. "Okay, then let's wait a little longer," Dalton said as he nodded his head. "Don't believe this bum, my friend. I'm sure the concoction he made isn't doing anything at all," Blair said to Dalton. "And you're saying this based on your vast knowledge of herbal remedies?" Dalton shot back as he glared at him. Blair didn't dare to say anything else. Jason interrupted to say to Kevin, "I still think you're a troublemaker. Why the hell did you have us burn our clothes when the chefs had set up a perfectly good grill?" Kevin looked at him and shook his head. "That shows what little you know, Jason. The grill's charcoal would have put a lot of toxic substances on the roots I was preparing. But your fancy clothes were made of 100% cotton, a lot cleaner to burn." This seemed to satisfy the onlookers, and Jason backed off so he wouldn't look even more foolish. He'd get even with Kevin later. While they were waiting, the sky suddenly turned dark, and a cool breeze blew across the campsite, making the trees start to sway back and forth. "It looks like it's going to rain," Officer Emmett said. "No way. Even if we get some rain, it shouldn't be a thunderstorm. After all, it's almost autumn," Matilda Jones pointed out as she looked up at the sky. "I wouldn't be so sure of that," Kevin said very seriously. "It's still pretty warm out. I think we should move to higher ground so we can be safe from any flooding." "Sherwin, do you have any people to help move the campsite?" Dalton asked very soberly. "Don't worry, Dalton. The tents are perfectly fine right here," Blair said very assuredly. Right at that moment, Kevin looked up at the sky and frowned. "Kevin, what's wrong?" Phoebe asked inquisitively. "I can't believe they set up our tent so close to the river," Kevin said loudly. "Once it starts raining, the river will overflow its banks, and everything will be washed downstream, including us. And we don't have much time." "Kevin, you have no idea what you're talking about," Blair rebuked him. "It's too late in the season for that to happen." Dalton ignored Blair and asked Kevin, "Are you sure about that? Do you know about meteorology too?" "I know a little about it. You should really move Miranda to higher ground while she recuperates. I'll get Lily to do the same." Then Kevin turned around and looked at Blair. "Do you have any extra tents? I need one of them." Seeing how serious Kevin looked, a lot of the campers started to whisper to each other. They couldn't believe he was showing off again. After all, there were never any serious thunderstorms this late in the season. Lily heard the comments from everyone and started to doubt Kevin once again. Then Dalton looked Kevin in the eyes and thought for a moment. He agreed that it was getting too late in the year to have a summer thunderstorm, but Kevin had already been right twice today, so he gave him the benefit of the doubt. "Give Kevin a tent," Dalton said coldly. He didn't have to bother being polite to Blair. Kevin looked up at the sky again and commented, "I think we've got about 20 minutes before the storm gets here. Unfortunately, nobody can get a strong enough signal to check a weather app. I'm guessing we'll just have enough time to get to higher ground and set up shelter. Does anyone want to go with us?" "All right, Kevin, stop messing around," Lily warned him. "Are you coming with me or not?" Kevin didn't have time to explain it all to Lily. He turned around and asked again, "Isn't anyone else coming along?" Kevin didn't really like these people, but their lives were at stake. He waited, but nobody answered him. They just stared at him like he was full of crap. "Kevin, that's enough," Lily pleaded with him helplessly. From Lily's point of view, Kevin was taking advantage of their relationship. But just the thought of this made her feel embarrassed and she started to blush a little. "Lily, you have to trust me. There isn't much time left." Kevin looked at Lily and was confused to see her blushing. The rest of the group didn't believe Kevin knew anything about the weather and figured his luck had to run out soon. They didn't see any need to follow him and pitch their tents in another spot. While they were all discussing amongst themselves, Phoebe walked up with her brother Blake. "Kevin, I believe you. I'll go up the hill with you," Phoebe said confidently. "What are you talking about, sis?" Blake said somewhat anxiously. "It's way too dangerous in those woods." A few other members of her family agreed and tried to persuade her to stay where they were, but Phoebe didn't pay any attention to them. She just stared at Kevin with a determined look in her eyes. She didn't care whether Kevin would make a big deal out of it or not. What was important was that she had to support him right now. The group tried to warn her not to go with him. One of them even said, "Just because he lucked out and made some herbal drink doesn't mean he knows what he's talking about. Stay here where it's safe." They all tried to stop her from going. Blair walked quickly up to Kevin and said loudly, "I know why you're doing this, Kevin. You know that your herbal cure isn't going to help Miranda. So now you're trying to sneak out of here before Dalton figures it out and gets his hands on you." A lot of the other campers nodded in agreement, and this really made Kevin angry. Here he was trying to help these people, but they kept mocking him and calling him names. Were they ever going to listen to his advice without complaining? "Get out of my way," Kevin said coldly. "What? Am I right? So now you're angry because you know I'm telling the truth," Blair said with a proud smile. He knew that he couldn't let Kevin leave. By now, everyone was convinced that Blair was right and that Kevin was trying to run away. They just couldn't figure out why he'd asked Dalton to bring his wife along with him. But they tried to keep him from leaving anyway. "I said, get out of the way. I don't have the time to waste with you here," Kevin said quickly. He had to set up the tent before the storm arrived, and he didn't want Lily, Miranda, and Phoebe to get soaked by the rainstorm that was on the way. "Okay, Kevin, now that I've exposed you for what you really are, why don't you go and apologize to Dalton? Admit that you were wrong," Blair said boastfully. "Blair, do you have your head on straight? If I wanted to run away, would I ask Dalton to come along with me?" Kevin's patience had reached its limit. Blair started to reply, but Kevin stopped him as he opened his mouth. "Just leave us alone. I don't want to have to come down here and save you later," Kevin said frankly. "What? What did you just say? The wind's blowing too hard. I didn't hear you clearly," Blair said sarcastically. "And by the way, I don't need help from someone like you." Kevin ignored Blair. Just as he was about to head towards the woods with his equipment, Blair put out his arm and stopped him. "Dalton, it looks like we'll need to deal with this guy first before we can head to higher ground," Kevin said grimly. "That's easy, Kevin," Dalton said. Then he turned to Blair and said very firmly, "Get the hell out of the way right now. I'll only tell you once." This scared the crap out of Blair, and he immediately stepped aside to let Kevin move past him. Kevin picked up 2 backpacks and 2 tents now that Dalton and his wife were joining them. Just as he was about to head towards the wood with Lily and the others, he suddenly turned around and looked at Blair and said to him, "Don't do me any more favors." Blair couldn't take it anymore. He balled up his fists and started to move toward Kevin, but Officer Emmett suddenly pulled him back. "Helly, are you still standing up for this piece of trash?" Blair asked her in surprise. "I'm doing this for your own good. This camping trip was organized by your family. If you were to fight with Kevin," she paused for a moment and said, "are you really willing to let everyone see your family as some kind of a joke?" Officer Emmett was obviously disappointed in Sherwin. Although she wanted to leave with Kevin and his group, she decided to stay because she also thought that there wasn't much chance of a big storm this time of year. "Dalton, let's get going now. The rain will start very soon and we won't have much time to set up our tents," Kevin said very seriously. "Okay. Please ask Lily to take care of my wife while we set up the tents together," Dalton replied. The land in that part of Illinois was fairly flat, but luckily, there were rolling hills near there and the river was in a very slight valley that extended up into the woods. After about 10 minutes, Kevin found a good place to set up the new campsite. With Dalton's help and the simple tents that they'd brought along, the two of them were able to set it up very quickly. Suddenly, Lily said loudly, "Kevin, Dalton, come here. Miranda just woke up." When Dalton heard her, he immediately abandoned Kevin, who was cutting down some vines, and ran to Miranda. "Dalton, what happened to me?" Miranda said weakly. "It was all my fault. That fruit I gave you was poisonous. Luckily, Kevin saved you," Dalton said nervously as he hugged Miranda tightly. Watching the tender scene between the two of them, Lily subconsciously shifted her gaze to Kevin. Kevin was now gathering the vines together, and it looked like he was getting ready to use them for something. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning streaked across the sky, followed by rumbling thunder and a wild gust of wind. "Did I just see lightning? I can't believe we're stuck in the woods during a thunderstorm," Phoebe said in a panic.
"Damn it, Kevin, you were right,"
Dalton shouted as he used his body to protect Miranda from the wind. "Don't thank me yet. Go ahead and take your wife into the smaller tent. I'll join Lily and Phoebe in the other one," Kevin said as he used the vines to tie the tents more tightly to the stakes. Soon the five of them split into two groups and went into their respective tents. But when Kevin entered the tent with Lily and Phoebe, the atmosphere immediately got very awkward. "Kevin, why did you only bring 2 tents for the 5 of us?" Lily asked as she started to blush. "Lily, I only have 2 hands. How many tents and backpacks do you want me to carry?" Kevin protested. Lily couldn't think of what to say. She just knew it felt really inappropriate for the 3 of them to share a tent. Suddenly there was another flash of lightning and a loud thunderclap. It really gave Lily and Phoebe a scare. "Looks like this rainstorm is even worse than I expected," Kevin said with a frown. "By the way, Kevin, I'm curious. How did you know it was going to rain?" Phoebe asked him after she came back to her senses. "Would you believe me if I told you that I also know astronomy and geography?" Kevin joked. Lily and Phoebe just rolled their eyes at him. The tent immediately fell into an awkward silence. The 3 of them didn't know what to say and just sat quietly listening to the sound of the rain outside. "Why don't the 2 of you chat a little? I need some rest," Kevin said as he yawned and stretched out on the sleeping mat. "Kevin, you don't plan to sleep in here, do you?" Lily asked awkwardly. "Well, you don't expect me to go out there, do you?" Kevin asked in surprise. "Are you sure? You'd really let me go out to get drenched in this downpour?" "This isn't about the rain. It's because Phoebe is one of the most eligible young women in Chicago, and she's never had a boyfriend. If you sleep in the same tent as us, people will find out, and it would ruin her reputation," Lily explained. It was very difficult for her to say this in front of Phoebe, but that's what she felt. How were they going to work this out?
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.